Welcome, Peter. How are you?
I'm doing today relaxed, energized, and in the middle of a grief process due to what is going on in the planet at this moment.
Yes, we've had a few guests on the podcast who are going through the same. Obviously, we're talking about the coronavirus, which has, meant a lot of people have had to shift their plans in the world. In fact, we talked about previously on podcasts how it's almost the time for Agile, when you've made all these plans for the year, or even for the next couple of years, and suddenly they've all changed and you need to react. And I guess this is a really important time for leaders especially to be stepping up and supporting people through this time of change.
Yes, certainly, completely true.
So how did you come to working in Agile and especially this topic today of Agile leadership?
Wow, so I will try to be as concise as possible.
Yeah, we all usually have a long history, but we only have an hour.
To be really to the point, I studied computer science, so I
Mm-hmm.
was an expert in software developer and development. I was all into algorithms and complex software development. And I think one day I got just tired of being in front of the screen and
Mm-hmm.
typing in the keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
And I got interested on the mystery of these human beings between the chair and the keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
I was really curious to understand how human works and the kind of the psyche and the motivation of human beings. So in
Mm-hmm.
a moment of my life, I was really passionate about computers and trying to understand everything about it. And suddenly my focus moved into human beings. And since
Mm-hmm.
then, I'm really passionate about trying to understand from different angles, theories, and frameworks how the human psyche works. And I was in the middle of this personal transformation when I found Agile. And then I
Okay.
saw that I could bring all of my IT knowledge expertise into a coaching profession that was in the same field I was an expert in. So it was kind of a natural move to move into Agile coaching and what I do these days.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think I followed a very similar path. I did computing science. I started in the tech field, but then I quickly found out that um, the people interested me more than the machines. But I still
Yeah.
like working with teams to create products and to work in technology. But it's really important that I know this sometimes people don't like it when I say it, but sometimes the tech is the easy part. Machines do what you tell them, whereas people need more than that to work together and to be productive. So that's where I believe probably good leadership comes into it. And why I'm particularly interested in this podcast today is I believe you do have a lot of really important things in any agile transformation, agile organization. The three that I've personally landed on are, that team agility, which is obviously what Scrum and all that all talk about. Then there's also this side, which is almost the other side, is that leadership, agile leadership, and making sure that we're creating alignment, but we're creating enough autonomy for people to operate and react to the market and to the circumstances within. But all that is underpinned by a certain truth or psychological safety for those two groups to interact. So it's quickly becoming clear how capabilities like your agile leadership, the team agility capability, and psychological safety capability can really form a fantastic scaffolding for teams and how they can support a truly agile organization.
Yeah. Wow. I like your summary. It's really concrete and practical.
Yeah, well, we've been here in this industry for a long time. We've seen enough war stories that we can actually start to see the links and the ways that things do work and the way that things don't work. And I think it's pretty clear that, and it probably wouldn't come as a lot of surprise to people that people need autonomy to do their work and they need to be able to communicate with their leaders. I mean, that's something that's always been necessary. We just need more defined trustworthy relationships between those guys. So we have some slides to work to. So let me just share my screen quick. And this is the Agile leadership capability available on the Comparative Agility website. So we've already done a quick introduction, but Peter Moreno is an Agile coach, Agile and integral coach, sorry. We'll get into that in a second. And you're in Brussels right now, correct, Peter?
Yes, I am based
Yeah,
in Brussels at the moment, yes.
great. And my name's Simon Hilton, Agile coach and head of product manager in a company called Willow. And really what we've talked about before in a lot of podcasts as well is this concept of aligned autonomy, where we need to create alignment across the organization, but we need to give teams and empower teams to support their autonomy and react to how their work is progressing, the breakdown of complex problems, but also market forces. And I believe this agile leadership really, as I said, really sits on the left here with the leaders creating that alignment at every level of the organization. So a lot of people talk about how this is defining the what and the why, and letting the teams figure out the how as they progress through the problems that you're handing them. So I often talk in my experiences about, okay, I need to align when I'm leading, I need to align my individual to my team to my business, and my business to my market. So it's really good. You can already see there that there's a tiered approach that in the mindset of a leader that they need to take into account with everything that they do. This is really a part of the, how can we put it, so it's a servant leadership mentality, that instead of command and control of executives telling managers and staff, et cetera, what to do, and really directing the what as well as the how. It's really the flip side of that right now, with being able to make sure that teams clearly understand the what and the why, where the business is trying to go, and getting them to align their daily and even maybe weekly work plans to the overall direction of the business, which is where this enable and empower mindset comes from. Have you seen that show up in your coaching so much, the servant leadership mentality, Peter?
Well, here I feel like I would like to put certain or to share certain perspectives, or from where I will speak. Yep. So maybe this will help to understand what I'm referring to.
Yep.
So as I mentioned before, I study integral coaching, which basically means that I have been trained to use integral theory to look at things and to understand the complexity of any experience or life conditions from an integral point of view.
Now, can we just stop there? What does an integral point of view mean?
Yes, exactly. So it basically means that you try to include as much as you can a comprehensive approach to understand reality, where you look at leadership and instead of putting labels, you see levels of consciousness. And you recognize that depending on the work that needs to be done, you need a certain kind of leadership. For example, if the work in the military it's the one we know, do you need really a high level of leadership there? Maybe yes, not, depending on what you're supposed to accomplish. Sadly enough, these days we see a kind of leadership operate in the school system or the political system on this planet that is poorly developed. And we see a lot of negative consequences because of that. Now, when we look at a company, every company has a purpose, they need to produce certain value, they are customers, then the question for me is, what level of consciousness is required for this company to achieve their goals? And in that sense, I have noticed that Agile bring into the complexity of an organization, which is already complex, it brings in the conversation of how do we want to work? What will be our way of working, the set of values and principles to run our company? And then when a company decides to go agile, as a consequence of that, they encounter the issue that the level of consciousness of their leaders is not yet ready to deal with the complexity of creating agile teams, enabling agility, and creating all the amazingness that we know is possible. However, we also know that the level of consciousness of the leaders will limit the performance of the company. So there is a thing where this conversation kind of have a space where to speak about, because it depends on the level of consciousness, the complexity of the company, what is their commitment to really harvest the value, the benefit of Agile. And And yeah, and then going back to what you say, servant leadership. Yes, it's a label. What does it mean? I have seen so many colleagues having so many ideas about what is servant leadership, and there are thousands of frameworks that I,
Yeah.
in my approach, I try to go more to the essence, what are the qualities that someone needs to show to enable agility in an organization? And if we
It's
want to put it,
interesting.
yes, go ahead.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because, I mean, what we're trying to say here, and I think people will really identify the whole commanded structure that we're thinking about here on the left in a workplace. I mean, I think the military could even be a bit different, but in a workplace has traditionally been the classical approach to management of you're almost a machine which has output, and we just need to measure that output and improve it. Whereas what's inherent in Agile is, and this comes up a lot if you have conversations, we don't talk about resources, we talk about people. So already there, you're creating another dimension over
Yeah,
you produce X widget to you're a person who has feelings and thoughts, and we can
yeah,
harness those for the benefit of everyone. Well, not even harness, just allow that to thrive.
yeah,
So that's the key concept there. That layering of dimensions of consciousness when we start to think about people in that way already starts to break out. Now, so I think we have to be extremely fair here and say this isn't limited to Agile. Any sort of good leader will empower, inspire their team. It has to think about all these different things about how humans, as you put it before, can work best together or work best with a keyboard or something like that. It just seems to go really well with Agile in the aligned autonomy mentality.
yes. And here's maybe, if we look at the history of humanity in the last hundreds or 200 years, the notion of looking at people as resources and machines, as you mentioned, it comes
Mm-hmm.
from the Industrial Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
At that moment, we needed a bunch of people to do repetitive activities, so an outcome will be predictable, and then they will
Yep.
be able to know how much the factory will produce.
Yep.
And sadly enough, there is still a lot of this legacy running companies that have nothing to do with the challenges and the complexity of these days, where we have a more kind of, how can we call it, learning revolution, where knowledge and information and data
Yeah.
mining and artificial intelligence are the challenges that people have these days to really be successful in a company. So it isn't, I will fully agree to say that there is a level of consciousness of leadership and understanding of what leadership is that is running companies that are facing issues that are beyond their competencies. And that's why the necessary
Yeah.
develop leaders.
Yeah, it's actually pretty clear. To me, it draws a very common line to just even waterfall, like planning and leadership is the same thing. Waterfall project management came from us building cathedrals and all of these amazing things back in the day. It was the way you built houses. In fact, it's still the way you build buildings. It's just our requirements have changed. So when we come to software, for example, we can fail fast and we need to fail fast in order to create new knowledge. In the same way, it doesn't mean that the command and control structure, leadership structure can't work if you have simple things to do like assembling something in a factory, but it's just maybe not, just because we've used it before doesn't mean it's the tool we need right now in a new world of complex and creative problem solving.
Yes, yes, certainly. I
Okay,
like
so
we're slowly building the conversation, so we can maybe go deeper and deeper on these elements. Because, for example, what is leadership really? How can we really put leadership in a context that is not only about having authority or power in an organization? I tend to see more leadership as an ability, a competency, a skill, whatever word people want to use for that anyone can access.
yeah.
And in that sense, it's the responsibility of everyone. And being a follower or being a leader is equally important.
Mm.
I in my professional evolution, I stumbled upon the need to work with leaders. I was not looking for it. It just happens naturally in my missions that I was kind of pointed out to work with leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I do it, the more I notice the need to develop the followers.
Yep.
Because when the leader wants to change, grow, and evolve, there is a pullback from the followers who have developed an image of the leader as someone who is command and control,
Yep.
authoritarian, and not leaving space for autonomy. And believe it or not, one of the challenges I face today is how do I create a space in the mind of the followers so they will allow the leader to show up in a different way when they decide to change, when they see
Okay.
value for change.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So in front of us here, we have the Integral Agile Leadership Framework, which we've talked about those different levels of consciousness, and we'll just it's organized into 4 key quadrants with with 2 kind of areas per quadrant. So we'll talk about the top left here and just go maybe, I think it's anti-clockwise, or we'll just continue through it. But I think let's start with what you just talked about there, the personal agility, and work our way up. The 4 key areas, sorry, are personal agility, business agility, interpersonal agility, and organizational agility. So how
Yeah.
did you come up with these 4 quadrants?
Well, here is where another important lens of the integral theory is important, maybe to give a synthesis of it.
Mm-hmm.
The notion of quadrants, in the integral
Yep.
theory, we use 5, 7 lenses depending on the flavor there. And I just talk about the 4 levels of consciousness that give you a level of altitude of the complexity of mind of the person.
Yeah.
Another lens is quadrants, and here in the right side, we have business agility and organizational agility, which is more the tangible, concrete aspects of an organization. And then in the left side, we have personal agility and interpersonal agility, which is more the soft skills, the invisible part, the culture, the mindset, things that we cannot really measure, even though we can eventually think that we measure them because there are some tools to do that. It's very intangible. It's not something that you will see.
Yep.
We cannot feel it. So these are the right and the left dimensions. Then the upper part is more orientated to what will really touch the heart of an individual. Like personal agility really has to do with the functioning or the operating system of the individual from where the person is actually operating. And then the business agility is also in that arena because at the end, for more that we call it business, at the end is bringing value to one single individual. And even if we will say this company is bringing value to a society, a family, a collective, at the end, there is one individual who receives the value. And in that sense, the idea of customer centricity or stakeholder agility that you see in that quadrant, at least from my thinking, it always needs to go down to which is the individual that we are actually supporting on the business agility dimension.
Yeah.
And then in the lower part is more the collective, the upper part is individual, the lower part is collective. And then we have personal agility, where we have 2 dimensions, teams agility and cultural agility. And then the organizational agility is more the collective outside, which is a structural agility and systemic agility. It's a lot of names so far. I guess people who are listening to this will get a bit of dizzy with so many.
No, I think you've explained it simple enough. So in the personal agility and business agility, it's all about the individual, internal and external. Whereas down below in the interpersonal organizational, it's all about the internal and external we or it. Yeah. Okay, great. And I think that aligns well with the integral model that you're talking about, which everyone can just search and you'll probably find some great graphs there to show. It's really about centering around those terms. When I think of a decision or I think of a concept, how does that affect I? How does it affect we as a team? How does it affect my customer? And how does it affect the larger market or world? That collective group of customers out there. And I guess that's where, people do think about these days, the real triple bottom line or the environmental effects of everything they do. That's where that level of integral decision-making is showing up in the world. So let's just go straight into it. So let's start with personal agility. It's a compass to individually grow. It's about it's about making sure that I am, as you've got here, a mindful leader. I'm an inspirational leader, that I am showing up at work and inspiring and caring about the people around me. We have business agility, where we're talking about the customer. So this is again in the individual quadrants. That being customer centricity, we're focused on what's best for our individual customer, that next one person who's going to consume or use our product, buy it, or just serving that person. And this, not only the customer, but the stakeholders, because there's many more people who receive value or are included in the cycle of whatever you're developing. So I love that we're thinking about how I can grow as a leader, but also what's the individuals that I'm serving inside this whole process.
Exactly.
Then we could, and that's a compass to serve customers, as you've got here, and there's many customers inside your organization, and I say we're all in customer service. Then below you've got interpersonal agility, which is a compass to collectively grow. So that's really about team, cultural agility, how are we going to handle, and this comes back to, it's interesting conversations we've had about team emotional intelligence. How do we process trauma? How do we navigate the pitfalls as we're a team along the way to actually make ourselves anti-fragile? And again, that's team's agility as well. Because the team, as people come, as people go, as things happen like this to them, how are we using that to grow and be an opportunity, rather than be stuck that because we don't have video conferencing or we're not seeing each other face to face, we can't produce value. And then we have organizational agility, the compass to collectively act, which is about structural and systemic agility, which I think we'll need to get more into detail, but I'm going to hesitate to think that this is about how we align as a business to the market and just be that strong organization, which can survive in uncertain times.
Yeah, it is related to that, certainly.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's dive straight into the first one, personal agility. You said the ability to lead and inspire and engage people to manifest a common purpose. So this is obviously not, this is the leader, not the individual development team member. But at the end of the day, when we talk about inspire and purpose, we're talking about the what and the why.
Yeah, and well, before we move on, just I find very important to mention the name of Ken Wilber, which is the author and leader of integral theory for people who want to research more of that. The basic foundations of this assessment come from his work. And then what I did was to consolidate what I consider very important around these quadrants and levels of consciousness. Now, the inspirational leader, as I said before, is not only the person who has authority. A PO, maybe who is not a hierarchical manager, can also be an inspirational leader. A squad member or a team member can also do this. And indeed, the ability to inspire and to manifest a common purpose stand out like the two essential elements. And in the assessment, and also in this framework, inspirational leader has certain muscles, and this is where another element of the integral theory is important. It's the idea of personality types or types in general, because you can be a leader who is, for example, in a center of gravity that is very command and control, let's say. However, at the same time, this do not mean that all command and control managers are the same. There are also personality types, styles, And here, what I'm trying to address is like, in order to become inspirational, whatever your level, whatever your type, there are certain muscles that you need to develop, like being able to do a proper storytelling so you can inspire people, that you can empower people because there's a deep sense of trust that every human being or every person in your team has the inner resources to actually get something done, and you are simply a catalyzer to remove impediments so people can actually do that. The notion of creative feedback as well. I call it creative feedback because there's so much literature on the internet about feedback. I think the most important element is is this feedback helping people to be more creative, or is it, in the contrary, creating more animosity or turbulence in the teams? And then there's also the idea of visionary purpose inside inspirational leader, to idea to hold a vision that people can actually engage in. And then the notion of transparency, which is how much the leader is able to be vulnerable, authentic, and really show what is really happening to him as he's being, let's say, inspirational.
And that's what I really, really love about this framework as we move through it. You're giving us the building blocks with each area, which is great for anyone to build their personal leadership growth plan out of. And I really agree. A great inspirational leader needs to be able to tell a great story. They need to empower people, get that creative feedback, and most importantly is create that vision and that purpose, which is, you know, communicated through the story, and really be leading an aspirational way of approaching life and approaching the problems that they're moving through. So I certainly agree, an agile leader needs to be inspirational, and it's maybe something that people take for granted, like, oh, you know, we don't need to think about that, we just need to get the work done. People, I think we underestimate the need for emotional connection for people between each other and to the work.
Yeah.
And this is where, you know, they talk about the elephant and the rider kind of ideas, that most of our days are actually driven by the emotional momentum of our lives rather than our cognitive decision to do things. So a leader needs to tend to those things and give people the emotional, how can I put it, momentum or velocity to really to focus on the work that's in front of them.
Yes, because you know what I have observed over the years is that the emotional state from which the work is done influence the quality of the work.
Yes.
When a developer is very stressed trying to solve a bug, might solve this bug, but might introduce other three bugs because the pressure is so high that at that moment, when there is stress and pressure, most of the people have a tendency to have a reactive behavior.
Yeah.
They react instead of response. I think one of the biggest changes for anyone to really experience the benefits of agility is to go from a reactive mindset to a responsive mindset, where the person is more grounded and centered. It can actually use all their capacities to deal with the complexity or the difficulties in front of them. And when the emotional state of the person is loaded with negativity, with frustration, with pain, this will affect the quality of the outcome, certainly.
Yeah. And it certainly gets them into that fight or flight moment, way of thinking, where they're not thinking, they're just thinking, what can I avoid, rather than the total quality of the product. So, okay. So the next part of personal agility is mindful leadership, and it's the capacity to mindfully lead and care for everyone well-being while working together. I think that's just what you were touching on.
Yes, yes. If we would like, this was also built with the idea of the agile, the integral framework. Inspirational leader will be more the outside, you know, the outfit of the leader.
Mm-hmm.
What will
Mm-hmm.
you see, the mask, what will you recognize, how does it need to look like? And in a way, mindful leadership is more the internal aspect of the leader. What is the inner fit, if I can call it that way? And then we have also
Yeah, I like
built
that.
maybe something important to mention is that I don't intend to have the final answer on the building blocks. Any person can have different building blocks.
Yep.
What I care more is about the big dimensions, the 4 dimensions, and then the
Yep.
subcategories. And anyone can plug in different building blocks, of course. And here we have lead
I
mindfully.
think they're great places to start, though. If you can tick off even half of these, you're in a good spot.
Yes, indeed, indeed. Well, I am passionate about personal development, psychology, and spirituality. So when I was working on this, I was having at least 40 or 50 books with me and going through them, looking for patterns, for words that are repeated, that will not only be a building block, but they will point out a higher level of consciousness that will enable agility. Because, you know, maybe something that is not written in many places is that to really access a level of agility that creates the outcome that we all promise, you need mature people. What does it mean mature? People who have done enough inner work to surpass their traumas so they can operate from a creative mindset rather than being emotionally reactive towards impediments.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I
Yeah,
think a lot of people say it differently. I think someone said it to me the other day, and this is where trust comes into it as well. Trust is the lubricant of an organization, was once said to me, and I feel like it's those levels of the unseen which you're talking about, which actually allow for the teams to operate in an almost subconscious level and not having to have constant meetings and trust issues and reporting and all that kind of stuff. If people can remove all those things which don't actually add value to the end product by creating inspired conscious leadership and also autonomous teams which again need to lead within their team, things will flow a lot better.
Yes, certainly. You know, I have witnessed workshops in different companies where people try to be innovative. For example, they want to be innovative and they want to have new ideas to create new products. And then I have seen this group of people without a facilitator who is able to enable a safe space, a safe container. And then the dynamics, the conversation, the outcome is all gravitating around judgment, criticism, negative elements, and they don't seem to be innovative because innovation requires to be vulnerable, to experiment, to try new things. And then I have seen the same group of people with a different facilitator who do have the ability to create this safety or trust in the group just with the way they speak or the energy from what they speak. And then I have seen totally different behavior, totally different outcome, just because the person who is leading or facilitating or enabling the team to work together is coming from a higher mindset. Here, for example, how I put the building block is called building trust and safety. The leader is someone that you can trust and is able to generate psychological safety, what you mentioned before. Now, psychological safety for me is the outcome. It's like in an apple tree, the apple will be the psychological safety, the outcome of it. In order for you to have safety, you need trust, like the main core of the tree and the branches to the floor. So the question will maybe remain open, like what is required in a human being to be someone who is actually able to create trust? Why some people can do it and why some people cannot do it?
Yeah. And this is where I think theories also go hand in hand when, I think a lot of this work has been done in psychological safety and making sure that we understand about failure and we actually breed it into our systems. Because I think that's a big part of it is the fear of retribution, and it's really that fight or flight response for honesty, for truth, and for trust. But a few kind of the things that you touch on here for the mindful leader to think about is to lead mindfully, balance alignment and autonomy, which is, again, we've talked about that in this podcast, and it's really, really important to be able to understand what that actually means and to deliver that. Building trust and safety. You've got here, the leader is someone you can trust and is able to generate psychological safety. There we go. Caring for well-being and active listening. So this does really sound like any good person, not exactly a leader, right? It's just someone who cares for others, is willing to not govern others, just willing to work in a trusting and collaborative fashion, and is really concerned with what others have to say.
Yes. And you know, I haven't encountered any leader, and this day I have the luck to coach individually a lot of senior managers in the company I work for. I'm now working with ING in Belgium and the Netherlands, and none of them, if you ask them, would you like to have a trustful, safe, psychological safety environment around you? They will all say yes. They will all want that. The question remains the same. Why some of them can do it and why some of them cannot do it? And I have noticed some leaders are really interested to dive into that questions and kind of look at themselves to do the necessary changes in order to do it. And some people, they just want a practical, quick solution, you know? Yeah, let's just solve the problem. And some of
Yeah.
these ideas, and this in mindful leadership, they require a commitment for a personal transformation.
I
And
completely agree, and I was thinking that's where you're going. Sorry to jump in, but it's just so true. Like when you get to a certain level of leadership, it's not just a it's not just a bullet point on a page, a skill you need to adhere to inside your job description. It's actually a personal transformation,
yeah,
which I think a lot of people don't understand, but is extremely necessary for you to be effective in that way.
I love how Einstein, he put it in one sentence. With the level of consciousness that you discover the problem, you cannot solve the problem.
Yeah, understood.
So,
It
and
requires you to evolve. Yeah,
exactly, requires to look at the problem from a different angle.
yeah. How many times have you met a leader which is wanting to do all this, but you just can clearly see they're not listening to their team?
I have only encountered like one or two cases out of
Okay.
25 or 30. Yes, I
Yeah.
think these days, leaders, at least the ones I have encountered, they're very willing, very open, very in actually. Because you know, some of these senior leaders, they have been working with people for so long that
Mm.
many of them have already come to the conclusion that their work is really about people.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
And when they give the necessary conditions for people to actually do their job, they will do their job.
Got it.
There are not too many leaders who come to the top of a company who have not understood this. There
Mm.
are still, of course, but it's not the majority, at least in my experience.
Yeah.
Now the question, the struggle that they have is that they don't know how to do it, and they fall back on behaviors, and they try
Yeah.
to do it with mechanisms that help them to claim to grow in the company. Because for you to grow in a classical company, you need to show impact, have results, kind of move people around, so you get there to be the VP or a top manager. But with these skills, you have managed to push other away and you claim,
Mm.
you grow in the company. Now, when you are in this level of high leadership or senior leadership, the same skills that allow you to get there, they are not necessary anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Because also people
Well, the higher
expect,
you get, it's more about how you get people to work together rather than the work you do.
yes, and
Yeah.
people expect this from you as a senior leader. You're not expected to give details on how to do things. You're more
Mm.
expected to be inspirational, to have a purpose, to have a mission, to have a clear voice, to kind of, push things forward, if we want to say it this way.
Yep.
And
Got
many
it.
leaders think they're doing other things like bringing results, having outcome, and things like that. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, cool. So in the next quadrant, we have business agility, which is customer centricity, which I think hopefully will will be very familiar with a lot of people in agile circles, but this defines how a leader considers and applies a customer focus to deliver value to customers.
Yeah.
Sounds like agile to me.
This is, I don't expect to have anything new here because we Agilists, we all know about value delivery, strategic priorities, customer satisfaction and focus, driven innovation, company
Yep.
consistency. Maybe company consistency may be a bit a new concept for some people. All the rest is the basic of our business, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do I mean by company consistency is that and this one I noticed this by talking to leaders and these different companies, is that there is, in some companies, there is a lack of authenticity because there is no consistency between the internal message and the external message.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine that you're trying to dance with two songs.
Mm.
You're playing two songs at the same time and you're trying to dance. And that's this level of inconsistency create a lot of frustration because people
Yeah.
feel, and they say, but the company is giving a message A, and in the marketing, in the message to the customer is message C. So
Yeah.
this inconsistency really creates problem for customer centricity.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think I've seen that in organizations where even teams internally aren't fully aligned on their why or their what, which can lead to that disjointment that you're talking about here. But yeah, definitely value delivery, strategic priorities. I mean, not all of this is purely agile, but it's certainly good business in the current climate, especially innovation. Yeah, awesome. So the next step of that is stakeholder agility, and its ability of the leader to interact, co-create, and manage stakeholders.
Yes, and you know, this is one of the key how to say, challenges of a senior leader in a large organization. More than how to lead their department or their tribe, uh, sometimes the real issue is how do they interact and deal with the stakeholders, meaning the C-level management or shareholders, because some of the it's like these two different realities. Eh? When you're looking at a shareholder or a C-level manager, and then you are a VP in between, it's two different realities because in a way you're trying to get things done, creating like value streams or output in a department,
Mm-hmm.
and you have people who are having conversations that are go beyond your day-to-day work. And that's why I have identified these building blocks, like how to co-create a strategy, because you need to have different stakeholders aligned for a strategy to work. We all know that the culture eats a strategy for breakfast.
Yeah.
So how to engage as much as people possible so the strategy goes somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Visibility on progress, also important because sometimes a C-level manager will just want to know when you are going to deliver something, and if you are not creating enough visibility on progress, it will be very hard to have the proper conversations to kind of ask top managers or leaders to really give the autonomy that we know the teams need in order to create an outcome. Because that's
Yes.
the tension in the big organizations. Eh? Okay, we want to give them the autonomy, but tell me, when do you have it?
Yep.
So we know the Orion Triangle. Eh? You
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
three things
Yeah.
you can
And
control,
it's a two-way
two of them.
street.
Eh?
There's give and take. If you want to give in, I believe what I took it put it down to is responsibility and trust. I think those are the two dimensions that. Sorry, trust and
Yeah,
transparency. For you to get trust, you need to provide transparency.
yeah, certainly,
Yeah.
certainly. And then we have things like stakeholders then business health and results and value. Well, I came up with this idea of business health to summarize what you were saying before, because I
Mm.
really find a lot of value if leaders and companies can have this idea of the triple bottom line: profit, planet, and people. You know,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I would like to also include process there. You know, so
Yeah.
that the process also becomes, because today we don't see it this way. Eh? We don't
Mm-hmm.
see like the process that the company is using to run the company is not part of the bottom line, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore it's seen as a means to an end. You know, some people say agile is a means to an end. It's not the final goal to
Yep.
become agile.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like partial. If your goal will be to become agile and you will do everything required for a company to fully harvest the benefits of agile, what will be the outcome of that?
Mm.
If we believe in our story as agilists, we will say, wow, if you really do that, you will have happy customer, excellent products, and you will grow your business. So why
Mm.
agile cannot be the goal?
Mm.
You
Well,
see,
I guess it's the whole tools kind of idea that you can use a spade to beat someone up, or you can use a spade to dig a hole. It's what you do with it that really matters. I mean, you can use agile and you can use agile to create products which harm the people, profit, and planet of the organization. I mean, we've seen, in the way Facebook has created tools that have harmed democracy. Um, you could argue any number of ways that great software development can still hurt people.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's more the question of moral and ethic. How you say in English? Ethic.
I agree. I'm not sure it has a lot to do with stakeholders as much as kind of end customers. So yeah, but I love the idea that we're thinking about our stakeholders as customers. I think they sit right next to our customers in this model because, as I've always said, everyone's in customer service. Everyone you interact with, even in your team, in your organization, is a customer, and you should be thinking about how you're serving them and the quality of the service that you're performing. So I love that that's in there. And as a leader, you need to be considering how you're serving the office administrator as much as you're serving the the general manager, as much as you're serving the the uh, the CEO of the organization, because that's the mindset you need to live and model that everyone else to have as well.
Certainly. And you know why, one of the motivation also why I put the stakeholders inside this business agility dimension is because many leaders, if you ask them when was the last time you spoke to a real customer, you will get a silence. When was the last time you spoke to your internal stakeholders, either C-level or CIO or shareholders? 3 times a week.
Mm.
That's their real customer.
Yep, got it. Okay, so the next area is organizational agility. Here, one of the building block, well, the dimension that you've got here is cultural agility, is the ability of the leader to establish or facilitate an organizational culture that enables agility.
Yes.
So really, when I read that, I just think of growth mindset. I think of a part of who we are is that we change and grow and learn and fail.
Yes. You know, the creating culture is something that is beyond the control of one single individual.
Absolutely.
The community that somehow creates a kind of culture. And here, the building blocks that I put there are more pointing out a necessity to establish certain kind of pillars that will allow a culture to, let's say, be more agile. That's why we have, for example, celebrate and recognition, the ability to celebrate the progress and recognize people so you motivate them. We have practices for fun and ease, I think this idea of fun at work was propelled by the agile community and movement. It's elements that if you go to a company and they don't have some level of easiness, fun, celebration, of recognition, is it gonna be really an agile company? No,
Mm.
because the elements that are in the heart of agile, if we don't see a company go in that direction, but they produce a lot of value, and they are every sprint they produce all the story points that they're supposed to, and customers are receiving whatever they're supposed to receive, but we don't have this kind of culture internally, it will be strange to find a case like that. Then we have foster continuous improvement and promote craftsmanship.
Mm.
Now, the craftsmanship element is, to really, I learned this a lot working in ING. They really pay attention to mastery. You know, we
Yep.
use the system of Spotify. We have 180 coaches in 2 locations. So we have an army of agile coaches. We have more than 400 squads, at least 22 tribes. It's a huge agile implementation. And
Yep.
I'm so lucky to be part of that. I really feel super lucky to be there. And the whole company invests in craftsmanship and
Mm.
mastery. So if I will go to a company and I will look at the culture and they don't invest in mastery, which means basically that the people have 10% of their time or 15% of their time to just learn and become better of what they do, I'm not sure if that will be seen for me as an agile culture, because I believe this is an important element. Because you know what I noticed, that sometimes in the retrospectives, one of the impediments for a team is that they haven't mastered a technology. They start the new sprint and they don't have time to actually grow and learn more. So this idea of craftsmanship, I find it very relevant for an agile culture. And
Yeah,
then we also
absolutely.
But then we have support agile communities, so that the idea of either guilds or community of practices, that this element needs to be there if we want to see an organizational culture that is kind of connected to the agile way of thinking or mindset.
The two things that pop up to me when I look at this, because I'm absolutely a big, we talk about this a lot at work. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Is the whole Dan Pink autonomy, mastery, and purpose, and that's why a lot of you've talked about mastery already. Really, really important for any culture to feel like they're actually good at what they do. Purpose, a lot of organizations are doubling down on that, obviously, because it's a real important thing for a lot of generations entering the workforce, that their life is connected to their work if they're going to work so hard of it. And we've already talked about autonomy. And at the end of the day, culture is creating meaning inside our organizations. And the best part is that meaning is completely up to you. So if you choose to celebrate failure and learning and growth, great. That's just going to be the culture you have. And you're going to feel good when those things happen. But you could also just as easily create a meaning where failure is bad and we shouldn't be learning and we should just do what we're told. It's really up to you. And it's not like there's a universal culture. There's not a universal way of doing things. There's actually no meaning in anything, where it's up to us to create the meaning around all of these things, which is why culture is such a thing that needs to be created and with intent from a leader, as you're saying here.
Yes, yes. And ideally everyone, I mean, if I will have the responsibility to lead a huge department organization, I will empower all of us to create this culture and to make it a co-creative process. So that's why I put there to facilitate, to establish and facilitate, meaning that it's not the responsibility of the leader to create the culture. It's just to put the conditions to facilitate something to emerge.
Yeah.
And engage people on it, because a culture cannot be created by one leader. It's not possible.
Yeah. I often wonder about that, because a lot of the time culture tries to come from top down, and it's kind of like, oh, these are our meetings, these are our parties, etc. But I do wonder if you could just create some sort of cache of resources or tools that people can use to create their cultures from the bottom up. I don't know if it's like, okay, there's $500 a team every month to do whatever they want. Create your culture, create the things that you do to create meaning. And whether you spend that on Post-it notes or you spend it on gift cards or whatever you do, just create that culture of having fun with your work and learning as you grow.
Yeah, certainly. Because, in a way, for me, it's very important when I go to a company, I don't see anyone as a victim or a triumph. If you will say the leader is responsible for the culture, then everyone else is a victim. And it's a very disempowering lens to look people at. So if you're in a company and the culture is not the culture that you would like to have, why are you doing in that company?
Yep.
And what are you doing to, this responsibility of everyone?
Yeah, it's a hard one, because sometimes people don't feel like they want to create the culture. They're leaning back. So it's just, it's a tough one that takes time, but I think it's the best one when people live it every day.
Why it's so tough? Because culture equals family. And we bring to the office the same family system we had at home.
Oh, that's interesting. So if you come from a very command and control, for example, patriarchal family, you think that shows up in the workplace?
Yes, you will end up choosing unconsciously. You will end up choosing a company that will mirror this back to you.
Wow.
Equals.
That's deep and a harsh truth to take on, that you'll be living around.
Equals.
Sorry?
This law, equals attract equals.
Yeah, I understand. And I can understand, because that's where you may feel comfortable as well, subconsciously. I mean, people do often talk about seeking out partners which kind of mirror their parents. I can understand the exact same place where you seek out a workplace that mirrors your family.
Totally true. So, for me, I have been lucky enough to, one of my key jobs is to coach coaches. So to help agile coaches grow. and to coach leaders. This is what I mainly do these days. And I have coached certain people, and I have noticed as they do their growth and they start to kind of heal and recover from a unfunctional or dysfunctional family system, their way, their environment where they work start to change. It's even kind of a miracle, you know. They heal something in them, and the environment around them started to change. People get moved. Suddenly, the leader or the manager that was so tough gets moved to a different department because it doesn't match the reality of the group anymore. Or the leader change and open and recognize that their behavior is not working, is not serving the company. So yeah, it's confronting, and at the same time it's empowering because you can do something about it, which is your own personal development, which is totally on you.
Yeah, I'm just making a note about that because I think it's very powerful. Okay, so we just talked about cultural agility. Now, team agility is the ability of a leader to enable teams to implement and increase their agility. So this is really continuous improvement. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it is like, now imagine you have the focus on the culture and now you move the focus on the team. What are the important building blocks inside a team? And here there are many frameworks about teams and how to grow teams. I just put here some building blocks that I believe are essential. If I would look at in a team, what I would like to see in a team, and increasing, I would like to see that the team is increasingly growing in their engagement, that will allow them to be connected to a purpose, that eventually will allow them to show up in the company with the idea of wholeness. I took this idea from Frederick Laloux and Reinventing Organizations, an organization in which your whole being can be present at work, and then have self-organization as an outcome of that, and then catalyze sustainable high performance, which will mean how we can continue to produce value by at the same time taking care of our well-being or our state of mind while we get things done.
So we're increasing engagement. We need to be able to measure engagement for that. Our purpose changes as we change, which makes complete sense because just like any team can't, it's any organization. An organization can be a company or it can be a team. They need to change with what's going on. Great example would be a software team needs to turn into a DevOps team. You know, things need to change, things need to grow. Wholeness, the ability to motivate and support individuals to bring their whole being to work, which is very much in line with modern HR theory about bringing your whole self to work. Self-organization, leader acts as an enabler of self-organization with a team. That's very much at the heart of all your agile coaching, and anyone's agile coaching should be, well, guys, what do you think? How are you going to organize this which creates that level of buy-in and skin in the game that every team member is actually leaning in to solve the problem as opposed to leaning back and being told what to do. And then we catalyze sustainable high performance. The leader is a role model for high performance and supports the teams to achieve a state of sustainable high performance, where really it's interesting that what we talk about there, because we're more interested in personal best than high performance. How are you challenging yourself and living on your edge to grow as a team? Because we can't be, this is where we talk about often that the traditional HR individual measurement doesn't always hold true in the new environment, because an individual is not an output of value, it's a team. So how is the team holding itself to some sort of standard and improving that as they go?
Certainly. There was an idea coming to my mind as we come here, is the notion of, maybe from my personal experience is better. When I have worked with teams and individuals in a team, I have noticed that most of the conflicts, or what is preventing people to fully show up, is three main reasons. And maybe they can all go into wholeness, you know, this idea of, can I bring my whole being at work? And these three reasons are more coming from what happens in an individual. I know there are external factors influencing us, but when any of these three things are not really well kind of anchored in a human being, you will see that in a team there is dysfunction. The first one it's I am worthy. When a
Yep.
team has a problem of worthiness and the sense of worth comes from outside in,
Yes.
this will create troubles, because it will basically mean that my code and the quality of what I'm coding as a developer is connected to who I am. So if someone is criticizing my code, I will become defensive.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen amazing developers who don't have this problem, and they grow and improve and they create amazing outcome. And
Yeah.
developers are really smarter and more capable on coding, but they do have this problem and they create a lot of turbulence inside a team. A lot of these functions come from my sense of worthiness is outside in.
That's it. Intrinsic motivation, extrinsic motivation. So my sense of worth comes from inside me, and so therefore when I'm challenged, I can use that to support myself. Yeah.
The second one is, do I matter?
Yep.
Am I important in this team? Many of the dysfunctions come from one of the people not feeling that what they say, their opinion, their contribution, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. But that's where
When
self-organization comes into it as well, right? So why am I here?
exactly,
And if I can't
and that,
identify why I'm here, I can move over there.
yeah, exactly, and also as a coach, sometimes my challenge has been how to create a dynamic on which the team can notice that they're not really giving the feeling or sincerely being interested on the contribution of each of them, so they can start doing that, because that will heal the core of the dysfunction. And the last one is, am I seeing? Do
Yeah.
people really see me? Do people
Yeah.
really value my contribution? I am really worth for this team.
So what were those three in short? So I'm seen, I'm
Valuable.
valued,
Am I worthy? Do I
worthy.
matter? Worthy, matter, or am I seeing?
Okay, cool. Got it.
Yeah.
Good to know. Next, we move to interpersonal agility. So we've gone from the external organizational, which is, to the interpersonal, which is external. First one is structural ability. Is the ability of the leader to establish or facilitate an organizational structure that enables agility. So we've gone from really the team out to inter-team, correct?
Yes, this is more seeing the backbone of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have hierarchy. Let's go through it. This has flattened the organization.
Yep.
Which is the leader interested in making an organization that is flattened, not with the purpose of not having hierarchy, is with the purpose of creating a different motivation to be in the company. If the motivation to be in the company is to grow and go up in levels of the company, it's a classical organization. Then waste reduction, is the leader really interested on reducing waste on the way the company is functioning? Enable the agile transformation, which means, is the leader really from this dimension is really willing to change the structure of the company to enable agility? For example, recreating departments, recreating or hierarchy, or things that are on that way of thinking or on that line. Then remove impediments and positive hierarchy. So these are the building blocks. As I said, there are others that can be included here. You always need to make choices. But essentially, is the backbone of the company, the structure, aligned or not, or enabling or not agility to emerge?
Yeah, and this makes sense. Flatten the organization, remove the command and control structures, and allow teams to have more authority and autonomy around the work that they do. Waste reduction is basic Kanban. Anything that's not adding value to the customer, as we've talked about before, doesn't need to be there. Which is the same as removing impediments, is creating autonomy. And positive hierarchy is let people work together. Find and work with the people who they need to work with. If I need someone from HR to complete this, and I need someone from operations to complete this, let's just get together and start working, create those informal structures which actually create value.
Yes. Yes.
Great. And then structural agility, the next one is systemic agility. It is related to the ability of a leader to apply a systems thinking approach to uncover impediments, optimize the system, and facilitate solutions by leveraging on collective intelligence. And this kind of screams to me removing the highest paid person's opinion, not being based upon hierarchy and hippos, but actually using data to solve problems.
Certainly. And I like what you say. In a way, if structural agility will be kind of the backbone,
Yeah.
the pieces, then systemic agility is more how you make them function in the
Yes.
system.
Agreed.
They
Absolutely.
interact, And then we have system optimizers, so that the leader or the leadership of the company is really looking for optimizing the system.
Mm-hmm.
I was following the other day one interview to the CEO of Amazon. It's not that I'm very keen on what Amazon is doing, but
Mm-hmm.
these guys are great system optimizers.
Oh yeah.
Really nail it down to the stream that they know exactly what is working well or not, and they have really optimized the business in a way that they have become what they are. This is more another problem maybe in that company, but from the optimization point of view, it's a masterpiece of company for that.
Mm-hmm.
The holistic problem solving also, if you are solving a problem, do you really want to just solve the surface of it, or you really want to go deep into the root cause and see where is this issue coming from? The notion of collective intelligence in the system, are we enabling everyone to participate in a creative way, so the collective intelligence of the group is kind of propelled or used?
And being tapped into. Yeah.
Reduce politics, very important in the system of a company, because this
Mm-hmm.
creates so much pain. And the last one is sustainable productivity. So is the company caring also about the well-being and to have sustainable productivity from the point of view of the outcome, but also from the point of view of the people who are creating the outcome.
Mm. And I think this is a place where a lot of people just fall down, that it's either too hard or they trust everyone just to be doing what they want. But there is value in actually sitting down and actually looking at the system step by step, as we do with value stream mapping, etc., to make changes which have ongoing savings or effects. If you remove 2 parts of a 5-part process, that is a banked saving which is going to continue to pay every day for the rest of your organization. So thinking in a systems way is really, really important to reduce waste.
Yes, yes. And now that I think we have covered all of them, what I can say is that if we go back to the graph where we have all of them,
Yeah.
one thing I can say is that I have noticed that some leaders, they are naturally, can you go back to the circle where we have all the competencies?
Yeah.
That some people some leaders are more kind of naturally motivated to develop agility from the point of the system and the organizational structure, the organizational agility. Some people see it more as from a personal experience or a cultural experience or a business experience. And some people have some bias, they don't see one of these dimensions and they lose part of the whole story. And that was also one of the ideas, to have a lens that if you, for example, forget something, this framework can remind you that you're missing one element of the whole picture of.
Yeah. That makes so much sense to me, because I have seen those arguments go on that an agile transformation, someone saying, oh, it's a digital transformation, we need to be getting all the latest DevOps tools and all that kind of stuff. And then another person goes, no, that's not it. That's not going to work if it's not a cultural transformation. But if you only do that alone, you've got a lot of people who feel great, but nothing gets done. So it's great. This is a fantastic tool, because what you can do is use this as a leader and go, okay, maybe this bit's not working over here. The systemic agility and structural agility is not working. What other piece could I be neglecting which affects that? So maybe we don't have great systemic agility because I'm not telling the right story about how we need to change, the way our market is working, etc. So it does provide a great kind of 360 lens you're talking about to figure out how these things affect each other and how I can use one to affect the other.
Yes. And I could have only created this because I was using the integral framework.
Yes.
That's one of the powers of the integral framework, that whenever you create something from the integral point of view, it forces you in a way to think and consider elements that you will normally neglect because of your personality type. If you're more a people person, let's say, you will miss the more
Yes.
the concrete stuff. If you're more a result-driven leader, the people part will maybe a blind spot.
Yeah, that actually that makes so much sense, and I could think that I can think that about myself. It's quite easy to discount, oh, that doesn't work, but unfortunately, sorry, that's not important. If I'm very numbers based and outcomes based, it's going to be like, the people stuff doesn't matter. Let's just get it done. But then
Yeah.
you can use this to really minimize your weaknesses and maximize your strengths in that way. So it is a great personal growth tool, but also a great so it's a great micro level tool for a leader to check their blind spots and to make sure they're covering things. But it's also a great macro level tool because it helps understand the leadership model which you should be imprinting across your organization. So
Yeah.
what's your advice for someone who looks at this and especially looks at all of these and goes, oh, that's just too much. Like, what do I do next?
Well, I would say that that if someone really wants to engage in this profession of being an agile coach, uh, sorry, did you mean about an agile practitioner
Yeah,
or an agile?
yeah. So you've said to me, Peter's come to me as an executive. He's introduced me to the agile leadership model. I'm like, great, I get it. It's just so much to get done. Like that we have. I could pick each one of these could be a month-long journey for me to
Yeah.
flatten the organization or to co-create strategy, etc. So I mean, I think my advice would be just pick a couple. You've got a huge backlog, just like, this could be your personal board, Kanban board or whatever it is. Just pick a couple, focus on them and move them through. Would that be a great strategy?
Here we make a promotion to the comparative agile leadership assessment, because that's what this comparative agile leadership framework tool, people can go and use that and do
It's a great
the
point.
assessment, and then they
Benchmark
will answer,
yourself.
because this is not just a theory, it's a practical tool that people, I think, can access for free on the website of the comparative agility.
Yep.
They go there, answer the question, and the tool will show you, based on your answers, what do you need to focus on, and then indeed build a backlog and go through it.
Yeah. Sounds great. Excellent.
Yeah, I did use the website to do the assessment, and the results are quite, the format on which it's presented is quite easy to read. So if an agile coach wants to use this, you can go to comparativeagility.com, I think, use the assessment, print the results, and have a conversation with the leader about it and take some priorities. I think there is also a professional version where you can have a lot of data points of the comparative agile leadership assessment. And then you can include more people to give feedback. So it's a 360,
Yeah. Yeah. So if you had your direct report say, hey guys, send out this, and then based upon that, you can figure out where you may be wanting to improve, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one part, like a practical side. Now, more from the personal transformation aspect that I really love, and I'm passionate about personal transformation, is that if any agile practitioner wants to take his or her profession seriously, they need, it's an invitation. It's not a have to, an invitation to engage and noticing which of these dimensions they haven't really understood or need to practice, and therefore there is a need to engage in a journey for personal transformation.
Yep.
To do all of
Understood.
this yourself, to do all of this yourself as an
Got it.
agile coach, an agile practitioner.
Great. Well, this has been a journey for me. Thank you for your time, Peter. I think this is a really great tool. As I said, for me, this when you pair team agility up with psychological safety and agile leadership, where leaders can have a great framework to be a part of the agile journey. It's not just about creating self-organized teams and about the squad. It is about leadership as much as anything else. I think this is a fantastic part of the comparative agility platform, which can really help create that journey for any organization. I myself, I think I've got a team meeting today. I think I'll be asking all my team to to do the agile leadership test for me, see where I can find my blind spots and where I need to work on next. So thank you for your time, and have a great day.
You're welcome. Have a great day. I wish you well during these turbulent times on this planet.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.